Ooh, suddenly soundtracks are here to provide you. Suddenly soundtracks will show you care. Oh, be more the soundtrack inside you with sweet understanding. Oh, with sweet understanding. With sweet understanding. Soundtracks are your friend. Hey guys, welcome to yet another Suddenly Soundtracks here on Take 3 Productions, where we go through a musical, a movie, song by song, and judge a movie solely based on the soundtrack that it provides. First, we will dissect the entire movie, song by song, and give our rating of each song out of 10. Then we will rank each song from worst to best, then give an overall average of our scores. In the end, my final verdict will be given, and it will either be not rockin', scratched disc, one-time listen, download the soundtrack, or rockin' for the best of the best. We are doing the classic, the utter classic, one of the greatest musicals of all time, objectively. It might not be my favorite, but objectively it's one of the cinema's greatest musicals, 1939's The Wizard of Oz.
Many, many miles east of nowhere lies the amazing land of Oz, a magnificent empire created in the mind of a man who wrote a great book about it. Like wildfire in the wheat field, the fabulous tale of the Wizard of Oz spread from town to city to nation to the entire world. Although the Wizard of Oz has captivated the children of 4 generations and fired the imaginations of those youthful adults who have never grown old, although 10 million copies of the book have reached eager hands and eager hearts, no one has dared the towering task of giving life and reality to the land of Oz and its people. Every delightful character of L. Frank Baum's classic is now reborn. Every glorious adventure has been recaptured and painted with a rainbow. The celebration in Munchkinland, the flying monkeys, the rescue of Dorothy, the castle of the witch, the Palace of Oz, and Dorothy's strange journey to the Emerald City to find the wonderful Wizard of Oz himself.
We're off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz. We hear he is a wizard of whiz, if ever a whiz there was. If ever, oh, ever a whiz there was, the Wizard of Oz is one because of the wonderful things he does. We're off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz.
Mr. Chris Dillman, how are you doing today, my man? What do you think of The Wizard of Oz?
Oh my God, I'm very stoked to get to talk about this because not only is this one of my favorite films of all time, I highly consider this to be one of the greatest films of all time. And to be honest, I'm just very happy to be talking about this movie with such a great panel of people to talk about it with.
Yep, this one was a long time coming, and who the reason why we're doing this is because it was requested by, you know him from the Schmoedown, you know him from Late to the Party, Mr. Tim Franco. How you doing, Tim? What do you like? What are your thoughts on the Wizard of Oz? Are you pumped?
Oh man, I am so excited when I was like, "Hey, we got to do Wizard of Oz. Let's do this." It is like Chris said, like similar to Chris. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. It's easily I have probably a tie of two of my favorite musicals of all time. The other one being Rocky Horror Picture Show, but this one is definitely this is the musical I first fell in love with when I was a kid. I fell in love with this musical. I had the soundtrack when I was young. I memorized every song, and despite not listening to it as much as I used to, I can go back to this soundtrack at any time and still find myself easily able to sing every single song, even the crazy Munchkin Land sequence from the beginning to the end.
Yep, the Munchkin Land
and
sequence.
in my best Munchkin Land voice.
Those Munchkin Land voices. Yep, you grew up with this movie. Everybody's grown up with this movie. As he said, he also mentioned Rocky Horror. That's one of my favorites as well, and we will get to that eventually, my friend. We will. But we are going to go straight into this movie with the first track. Now the movie opens up. This is one of the first, I think one of the first films to actually use Technicolor in its landscape. But in true form, they creatively started off the movie in all black and white, like you would actually see in a normal 1939 film. Now this opening sequence just establishes who Dorothy is, where she lives in Kansas, and her parents and the family that she has at home, and the home that she's going to be longing for later in the movie. You have to know what she's longing for to have some sort of impact. But we get as an opening number.
Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, there's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby.
Fun fact, this was almost cut. I'm actually going to hand this right over to you, Tim. What are your thoughts on this seminal classic?
Over the Rainbow is probably like you. It may not be my favorite song, but I will admit it is the best song in the movie. Like looking from like a outsider's like music standpoint, probably you have it goes beyond the film. You can take this song and just play it anywhere with outside of the soundtrack, and it's a great song no matter what. It lives outside of the world of Wizard of Oz because of the context and because of what Judy Garland brought to it. And there's been covers upon covers of it. It's the song to come out of this movie.
Yeah, you say it's the song, and I can't agree with you more. Chris, I know you have a lot of thoughts about this song. Let us have it.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
This song is gorgeous. The arrangement is impeccable. It's so simplistic but it flows so smoothly. And as you notice when you hear Judy sing this song, you notice that it's not just, straightforward. It's very complex in how it moves, and it's sort of brilliant in the way that it starts off kind of slow and almost brooding's not the right word, but atmospheric. We'll just go with that, because it's just establishing what she wants, and it's the perfect way to start this movie out. It's literally the perfect way to start it out.
Yes, and I like how we're all. I even said this is considered now a cinematic masterpiece, a classic, objectively through critics, anybody alike. This was actually almost cut because the studio felt like starting off the film with such a slow, meandering song would A, turn off the audience, and B, make the movie run too long, and they wouldn't be able to get as much cash out of the movie as they thought. Well, this is one of the instances where the studio were idiots, and I'm glad that Victor Fleming himself and like the 3 or 4 other directors that were on this project. This whole movie, by the way, the making of this movie is a story in and among itself. But I'm glad that they all put their foot down and allowed this seminal classic to be heard, because this is one of the most iconic scenes in cinema for a reason. It really is. And the beautiful cinematography for 1939 is aesthetic, especially in that black and white lighting. It's not even black and white, it's like a brownish.
It's kind of it's kind of like sepia before
like sepia. Yeah. That's what it reminds me of.
It's really, really, really eye-catching. Anyway, Chris, out of 10 Totos, what do you give Over the
What
Rainbow?
the hell else do you give this song? I mean, hell, I heard oh god, I'm blank on the dude's name, but I heard like this, weird kind of awesome reggae version of it. It was a 10 out of 10 Totos for me as a kid, and it's a 10 out of 10 Totos for me now. I love it.
It is. For me, it's a 9 out of 10 Totos. It is a seminal classic. It loses a little bit. It loses a little bit for one reason, and one reason only. The impact of this song would have been so much better, because I actually prefer the reprise, which we're going to get to later in the film, because of how much thematically it bookends in the film. But it is a seminal masterpiece, and I knew that would be kind of controversial. I was juggling if I was going to give it a perfect 10 or not. Tim,
everyone's gonna crucify you now.
I know.
Well, you're gonna be stuck in the middle between 2 10 Totos, because that is exactly what I gave it. Because the song is a classic. It's the classic song to come out of this movie. Even though I like others more, I can see that it's the song. I mean, it won the Oscar for crying out loud. So there's a reason to that, and there's a reason why it's still popular to this day.
Indeed. I can feel the bottles being thrown at the screen by Aaliyah and Dan right now. Oh, all right. Well, then actually there's kind of a bit of a song dead zone, because right at the beginning of the film too, because this whole opening sequence, that's the only song in it. The rest is just set up for when she actually gets to the Land of Oz. And of course, you guys know the story of this. The tornado touches down, she's whisked away in the house, and bada bing, bada boom, she lands in Munchkin Land. We get into this huge sequence with 11 songs. 11 songs, back to back to back to back to back.
Come out, wherever you are, to switch the house to pitch, and suddenly the hinges started to unhitch.
Thank you very sweetly for doing it so neatly. Ding dong, the witch is dead. Witch, oh witch, the witch is dead. Ding dong, the witch is dead. As mayor of the Munchkin City, in the county of the Land of Oz, as coroner I must hover, I thoroughly examined her. Ding dong, the witch is dead. Witch, oh witch, the wicked witch. Ding dong, the wicked witch is dead. We represent the lullaby me, the lullaby me, the lullaby me. We represent the lollipop kill, the lollipop kill, the lollipop kill.
This entire sequence is how you build a world. It's really how you build a world through music, through stanzas, through great lyrics, and you build something that this sequence is ahead of its time. Chris, I know you're itching to talk about this. What are your thoughts on this whole Munchkin Land sequence?
Holy crap, where do I start? The cinematography alone could make it a 10 out of 10 for me.
Yeah.
Now, is every single piece of this sequence perfect? Sadly, no. And that mostly just comes down to how it was recorded, because I get it. 1939, audio recording equipment wasn't exactly the best. But so, sadly, some of the lyrics do get lost a little bit when you're trying to listen back, even on a remastered edition of the film. But for what must have been months of work, and it looks as beautiful as it does, that's impressive. That's insane. And yeah, like I said, most of the tracks actually work really well. You know, I'm pretty partial to, you know, when the mayor is trying to be like, you know, but is she dead? And they do that whole little back and forth with like four people
Undeniably dead.
dead. And then just the coroner just comes out and he just has the strangest voice, you know. As coroner, I thoroughly examined her. It's just it's
Yeah.
this whole sequence. I'll put it this way: it is ridiculous, it is insane, and it's awesome.
Indeed, and the voices, as you said, all of the Munchkins are obviously overdubbed by voice actors in an overdub process. Which actually, the overdub process was in its infancy back then. This is one of the first times in cinema where this has happened, where people would dub voices over already spoken dialogue. It was still in its infancy. Sound design was still in its infancy. And it doesn't show. It actually worked out really, really well
For the most part. But when you do get the lullaby, what are they called?
The
Lullaby League and the
Lullaby League.
Guild.
Yeah. So but now the Lullaby League specifically, in case you can't tell, they essentially did chipmunking before chipmunking was a thing.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. They sped up the because back in the 30s they actually had reels. They didn't just shoot reels for film. They shot a separate reel for actual audio. It's the audio reel, and they would manually speed that up and time it to the actual film itself. So actually, when you see that stuff, the actual film itself is also slightly sped up because of the processes that they had to do back then. It's really, really interesting how they put that together. Tim, what are your thoughts on this 11-song behemoth?
Aside from another song, this is my favorite song on this soundtrack. And mostly because it's super ridiculous and it's super fun to sing along to, even though never in my life could I aspire to have a Wizard of Oz Munchkinland voice, but I damn sure I do my best to try. And I love from the beginning, from come out all the way to the end. And I mean, there are songs when I nitpicked and I went through and like individually ranked some of these, and sure, there's ones that are lower, but overall, because of the fun aspect of the song, and it's cool too because it takes you around Munchkinland, so you get to kind of explore the set, which really kind of puts into perspective the work that they put into the set as well.
I would say for the sequence itself, the first 2 songs or 3 songs in it kind of become forgettable. But once you start getting into the sequence more and more, it becomes more and more memorable. I don't know if that's the way it is with you guys, but I don't necessarily remember Come Out, and it really was a miracle as well as I do after I hear the whole entire sequence when it's finished itself. But unmemorability aside for those 2 tracks, it's still a solid medley, and I gave it a 9 out of 10. Toto's fantastic. Chris, what do you give it?
I give the Munchkinland sequence a very much deserved 8 out of 10, actually. It's because, actually, like you said, the first couple tracks, it does take a little bit to get into it. Once you get into it, it's awesome, and it's fun, and it closes out incredibly strong, but it just takes a little bit to get the wheels turning, and then, again, it's I know, 1939. I'm being a little nitpicky with how it was recorded, but that does kind of bug me. Kind of like with the whole Rudolph when we were talking about that episode.
Yeah, it is what it is. It's a product of its time. Tim, what do you give this out of 10?
As mayor of the Munchkin City in the county of the land of Oz, I must give this song 10 Totos as well, because it's just too much fun for me. And I unlike you two, I actually really do enjoy the first 2 tracks come out, and it really was no miracle. I really know it was no miracle. I just love the rhyming in it, and it's just catchy. And so 10 for me.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. So then we move on, as I alluded to, we are introduced to Margaret Hamilton as the Wicked Witch of the West, and she disappears, which, fun fact, when the first take that they did, she burned herself pretty damn badly during that explosion, and she, it paused production for 2 months. It was terrible.
There's a lot of fire they're dealing with there.
Yep, there was a lot of fire, and they didn't really have fire hazard protection back then, which was sad. But after the Wicked Witch appears, the Munchkins basically tell Dorothy that the way that she can get home is to see the wizard. The wizard will get her home because that's where she wants. She wants to be home. And Glinda gives her the red slippers, as everybody knows. And she basically...
Ruby slippers.
Ruby slippers.
Ruby slippers.
In the book, it's silver slippers. But being as they wanted to make it full color, they changed it to ruby slippers so they would pop more on screen, which is a smart move. Anyway, we get, I would say, arguably the second most famous song from this film is "Follow the Yellow Brick Road, We're Off to See the Wizard."
Follow the yellow brick road. Follow the yellow brick road. Follow, 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 follow the yellow brick road.
The cinematography. Oh, they did Steadicam shot before Steadicam was even a thing.
Yeah.
How? How'd you do it? How'd you do it, Victor Fleming? Or
Whoever.
Whatever other director? Come on. Some of these shots, you just have to ask yourself, how do they pull it off? And I don't know. But it's amazing.
It's ahead of its time. The actual song itself is a great fanfare. And actually, they do sing "We're Off to See the Wizard, the Wonderful Wizard of Oz," which actually sets up a reprise that we get to later on that's continuous, and we'll talk about that in a second. Tim, what's your thoughts on "Follow the Yellow Brick Road, We're Off to See the Wizard"?
It's a great song. It's gets Dorothy on the move, and it's a great way to send her out of Munchkin Land. Unlike the reprises, I like this one because of the Follow the Yellow Brick Road a little bit in the beginning, because it's a little bit more Munchkin Land flavor, which I like a little bit. But yeah, it's a great song. It's really memorable. Like you said, it's the one people sing.
I just wish, this is a fault with the film, not necessarily the soundtrack, but we actually went back to Munchkin Land. I feel like this is a fanfare, and I feel like it kind of builds up a false pretense that we're probably going to come back and see these people again. We never do. We never do. We get a little clip of Munchkin Land later on, but we never really go back to Munchkin Land, which I've always thought was a missed opportunity. But the song itself is a classic. I give it 9 Totos out of 10. Tim, what do you give this out of 10?
I give this song 7 Totos out of 10.
Oh, okay. Chris, what do you give it?
I also give this track 9 Totos out of 10. Like I said, my only thing is just the recording, but that's a nitpick. So,
indeed. And then we finally start meeting the quartet: the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, and the Cowardly Lion. First up to bat is the Scarecrow, played by Roy Bolger, who was actually originally casted as the Tin Man. So we get "If I Only Had a Brain."
And my head I'd be scratching while my thoughts were busy hatching if I only had a brain.
Which these "If I Only Had a Insert" songs, this is the first of the trio, and I think it's the strongest of the trio. It's the one that everybody remembers, and the one that I feel like has the best instrumentation and the best lyrics, because we'll get to the other two, but this one I feel like is the strongest, and Roy Bolger out of the three of them I think has the best voice.
This is my favorite song of this film. It was the first song I memorized when I was a kid and fell in love with this movie. Scarecrow is my favorite character in the film. He's just lots of fun, has a great heart, even though he may not have a heart as well, but he does have one, I think, and a brain. But it's just a great song, and I love the extended edition that you get on the soundtrack. That's not the one in the film. It's awesome.
You get an extra verse, right? From what I remember, you
yeah.
get that extra
Yeah.
verse, which is really cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if they actually filmed it because fun fact, when they cut things out when they filmed it back then, they would just burn it, and it probably doesn't exist anymore. And we'll get to that stuff later on. Chris,
Light up all that nitrate.
Actually, yeah, kind of like Tim. Scarecrow is my personal favorite character in the film, and you know, it's such a simple little number, but it says so much.
Mhm.
You know, and which, by the way, before he actually sings, he has one of the most timeless lines in cinema.
How can you talk if you haven't got a brain?
I don't know. But some people without brains do an awful lot of talking, don't they?
Yes, I guess you're right.
But that line is just so perfect because it was true in 1939, and it's sure as shit true in 2018. And like I said, it's just a nice little number to introduce us to these characters who have stood the test of time.
I gave If I Only Had a Brain 10 Totos. I better if it's my favorite song.
That's what I figured. Indeed. Chris, what do you give it out of 10?
I give it a 9 out of 10. I love it. It's very fun, and it's a great way to set up this great character.
I gave it 8.5 out of 10 Totos. Again, this is my favorite of the trilogy of these songs. The other two I'm not as fond of, and we'll get to that in a second, actually, after this next one. All right, so after she meets the Scarecrow, they agree that they are going to go to the wizard so he can get a brain and she can go home. And they do a reprise of "We're Off to See the Wizard, the Wonderful Wizard of Oz," which you heard during the Yellow Brick Road sequence.
We're off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz. We hear he is a wizard of whiz, if ever a whiz there was.
We're gonna cheat here because this reprise happens 2 other times in the movie, and the only difference is one harmony is added to each reprise. That harmony is the Tin Man, and that harmony is the Cowardly Lion. There's no other difference to this song, and we're going to go through each reprise now instead of being repetitive and giving a separate rating for each reprise, which is essentially the same exact song. As a transition piece, it is the seminal transition piece in cinema. You go from one point to another, you sing "We're Off to See the Wizard, the Wonderful Wizard of Oz." It's become a cliche, a parody, but this is where it started, and it's so iconic that you can't knock it down. You can't knock it down.
My only problem is it's too short. I actually want a little bit more, which is why I can't give it a perfect score because it's just too short.
I know. Like, we're gonna do the Wiz at some point in the future. There's a great Wiz has actually a better transition song, which is
It does.
yeah, the ease on down the road. It's so good.
Okay. Okay.
I just made Chris go speechless. But yeah, we'll have to see the wizard. I do wish we had all 4 people singing more in this movie, which we don't get a lot. And yeah, it should have been extended. Tim, do you echo his statements?
Yeah, I echo the same statements. It's an iconic song. It's great, but it does lack some length in that. You know, I can't rate it as high as some other songs because of it, but it doesn't mean I don't enjoy it and I don't sing it whenever it's on, because I sure do. And I even do the skipping.
I don't say this a lot, but there isn't really a lot to say about this song. We got it in the Yellow Brick Road sequence, but we had the Yellow Brick Road sequence to kind of build off of it. This is just a transition piece, and I can't really give it any more than 8 Totos. That's one whole step down from Yellow Brick Road, but it's still pretty decent. Chris, what do you give it?
9 out of 10 Totos, because like I said, I only have one problem with it, and that's the length. That's it.
Tim?
I gave it 7 Totos.
Then we are introduced to the Tin Man, played by Jack Haley, and he tells her that he wishes he was human. He wishes he had a heart.
Just because I'm presuming that I could be kinda human if I only had a heart.
I wish it was longer. this. I feel like they should have just made given Tin Man another song. I just wish there was a different song and a new song, not just a reprise with different lyrics. I hope that makes sense.
I enjoy the other If I Only Had songs, but if I could reverse this one and the Cowardly Lion song, I would make this one shorter and the Cowardly Lions longer.
Yeah.
This song, it's good, but it's just, I don't know. I don't particularly relate to the Tin Man as much as some of the other characters, I guess, because he's the romantic, and he's just kind of like, where's my Romeo? So it's still a fun song. I still know the lyrics. I sing it. Guilty as charged, but it's not If I Only Had a Brain.
In case I haven't said it on this podcast already, if you guys know me, you might know that when I was a kid, I hated musicals because sometimes they'd have a pointless dance sequence that I thought had nothing to do with the rest of the film, and this was the sequence in the film that had that. Because here's the thing: as I've grown up and gotten a little more wiser, and learned to appreciate the kind of work that people like Jack Haley and Fred Astaire and Gene Kelly and all them would put into these productions, it's actually a really great dance sequence considering what he's wearing. Because it's a miracle he can move, let alone do all that crazy choreography.
Jack Haley is a talent. He's a great talent, and he's surely missed.
I give it the same score as If I Only Had a Brain. That is a 9 out of 10 Totos.
Tim, what do you give it?
I gave it 8 out of 10 Totos.
Yep, I actually gave it... Okay, I gave If I Only Had a Brain 8.5 out of 10. If I Only Had a Heart gets a 7 out of 10 from me. It's lesser. I understand its merits, but I just wish Jack Haley had his own song, not a retread of what Roy Bulger's song was. And we'll get into...
Well, okay. Well, so sorry to do this for 2 seconds, but... Okay, so there's a lot of shows that have a lot of motifs, and like we'll talk about when we finally get around doing Hunchback, how that is the Hellfire motif. Yep. Well, the motif of this movie is If I Only Had a Blank, because that's what these characters want.
Yeah.
It's every single time that we hear this reprise, it is us, the audience, getting these characters, and because this is a children's film, you have to keep it a little more simplified, which is why
makes sense.
I guess that's why I've always been so forgiving of that. Like, because yes, Clark, actually, you're right. Jack Haley should have gotten his own song that was completely independent of the other stuff you hear in the film. But remember, you're trying to keep these kids' attention.
That's true. Yeah, it's forgivable. There's reasons why it is the way it is. Can't say I'm that much of a fan of that, but we will move on.
Which that's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair.
It is fair. Then we move on to the king of the jungle himself. We run into the Cowardly Lion, and we are given a look at first we think that the lion is a douchebag.
You didn't have to hit me.
You didn't have to go and hit me, did you?
And then he turns into a coward with that voice, and it's hilarious. And we get an all too short song called If I Only Had a Nerve. Where the
noive. Come on.
Yeah.
But I could show my prowess, be a lion, not a mouse, if I only had the nerve.
I love If I Only Had the Knife. I really wish the song was given the same length as the other two songs, because I think it would have been fun, and I love the whole, wannabe rough, tough New York accent he brings to it, and the incorrect or the weird pronunciations. It's fun, and unfortunately it's just too slow, and too short, and what could have been.
Yes, like exactly. It's too short, but it's performed impeccably. And I love how this song actually closes out by, once again, just reminding the audience of what all these other characters are trying to achieve. It's actually probably the best setup for a We're Off to See the Wizard in this film.
It
Oh
is.
yeah,
It
out of the
honestly.
three, we're off to see the wizard. It's my favorite too because it leads in. It gets set up so well.
And we get the 4 harmonies.
If I only had the Noive, it gets a 9 out of 10 Totos. Like I said, it's too short, but because of its setup and because of what actually happens during the song, I can't not love it.
Yeah, the thing is that word's short. Tim, what do you give this?
Yeah, because of the shortness, I would have rated it one higher, but I am going to give it an 8. But it doesn't take away from the fact that I do love the song more than if I only had a brain. It's just the length.
The length is what's keeping it from actually being better than If I Only Had a Heart, and it's the same score. It's 7 out of 10. It's fine. It does its job. It's in the film itself. It works. Again, I just wish we had a little bit more to it, and I think that's a fair assessment. Immediately when they get out of the forest, the witch casts this sleeping spell on them, and they fall into daisies and
Poppies.
poppies. They fall into the poppies.
Poppies will make them sleep.
It only works on the 3, living creatures.
And then poor Tin Man, he just gets rusted solid because he had to cry. God damn it, Tin Man! Come on, Jack Haley, what are you doing?
But it doesn't work, and they basically awaken because of Glinda. Glinda stops this whole thing and saves their ass. Which, I mean, immediately when they're in danger, she protects them, and that's it. And it doesn't really have any lasting effect on the plot. After that, they realize that they're right there by the Emerald City, and we get this song, Optimistic Voices.
Keep straight ahead for the most glorious place on the face of the earth or the sky.
Gosh darn it, I know this song, but I had no idea that's what this was called. This is the definition of, oh, we need to put something in here. Let's just put in this little number, and it just feels like filler. It's fine. It's just people in the background singing as they're going towards the Emerald City, but it is technically kind of filler.
Same thoughts. I mean, whenever I saw the list that you sent, I was like, Optimistic Voices. Like, what is that again? And then I looked it up and like, oh, that song. Yeah, I don't really care for that song that much. It's just, it's fine, but I mean, it's catchy in the film, but it's weird because it's the only song that's sung by people that aren't even in the movie. It's like an off-camera like choir singing it, and to me,
sorry,
yeah, well, just to me that it just didn't go along with the rest of the songs in the film for that reason, and I just found it forgettable.
That's my thoughts exactly, Chris.
Now, question for you, gentlemen. Would this song have been a lot better if Glinda had sung it?
I think I would have liked it more if Glinda had sung it.
Yeah, but actually, that would have been a good thing. That really would have.
Or even maybe, this is like spitballing, but even maybe some other traveler heading towards or coming to the Emerald City or something. I don't know.
Or maybe they're hearing the people in Emerald City singing.
And maybe it showed that or something, but it's just these voices coming out of nowhere.
Yeah,
it's almost like when I was a kid. I think I pictured like the flowers were the ones that were singing it when I was a kid, like something out of Alice in Wonderland.
Same.
That's how I pictured it as a kid.
That's what I pictured as a kid as well. That the flowers were singing.
Awesome. Now we're in Pee-wee's Earth. Awesome.
Chris, what are your thoughts on it?
I mean, look, it's. I can't take away from the arrangement. It's just a nice, little track just to get us out of this really dark moment that was going on. That got happy, but we were dark for a second here. Let's not confuse ourselves here. These people were on the verge of dying.
Yeah.
So so like I said, it's just a nice little moment to sort of somber out the mood. It's But I do feel like the song is essentially just kind of dangling keys in front of your face, but it's the audio equivalent of that. But again, I can't take away from how well it's arranged and recorded, because this is one of the better sounding songs on the soundtrack, in my opinion. So I have to give it credit for what it's worth.
Indeed. Again, I have issues with its placement. I have issues with its context, and I have issues where I don't know the point of the song necessarily, and the issues surrounding the song and the fact that the song really just wasn't memorable until like as Tim alluded to, you don't know what this song is called until you actually listen to it, and then you say, "Oh, it's that song." I didn't know that was a song, and I have no regret giving this a 7 out of 10 because of that. Yeah, it's not a bad thing by any stretch of the imagination, but it's the movie could have done without it. Tim, what do you give this?
My lowest rank, I had to give it a 4 Totos.
Wow.
Ooh.
Ouch.
Ouchers, indeed. You need a band-aid for that one. Chris, what do you give it?
So I guess again I guess I'm being nice. I'm just being nice today because this is not this is very unlike me. But I'm actually giving it an 8. Where despite my problems, I can't take away from what just a nice little moment after something so heavy in the film. Getting that. So
Indeed. And we get right into this. Okay, they are greeted to a song called "The Merry Old Land of Oz."
Ha ha ha, ho ho ho, and a couple of tra-la-las. That's how we laugh a day away in the merry old land of Oz.
I just want to know how the hell they got the horse to be a different color. But yeah, no, I love this song. This is again sort of going off of like I said, we came out of a dark moment. Now we're back in the light, and this is probably. It's probably one of the most happy songs in the whole thing. And again, this song is so beautifully recorded especially for 1939. Oh my God, I can actually understand every single thing that people are saying in this song.
I love this song. I love, being able to hear Frank Morgan sing. My favorite parts of the song are though when each segment where our travelers are being pampered in the city or repaired or getting things done, and especially the Cowardly Lion's little line where he's,
That Satan heir of several fair in the merry old land of Oz.
As you said, Frank Morgan does a lot of heavy lifting in this song. He plays a bunch of different characters along with the wizard. He plays this guy at the beginning, the mind reader that Dorothy goes to. He is a great character actor. Frank Morgan is a very underrated character actor. He's fantastic in this film. This song itself, I actually really like it. I really, really do. I gave it 9 Totos out of 10. It's really, really phenomenal, especially the pampering sequence. It's one of my favorite sequences in the film. Tim, what do you give this out of 10?
I gave Merry Old Land of Oz 7 Totos.
Indeed. Chris?
Okay, it's official. I'm being way too nice to this movie, apparently, because I gave it 10 out of 10.
Okay, so you guys probably realized that I was talking about how I was displeased that Jack Haley didn't get his own song. That Roy Bolger didn't get his... Roy Bolger technically got his own song, and then Jack Haley kind of got the Roy Bolger song, but with different lyrics. But good old Bert Lahr, he got his own song, and it's arguable if this is any good.
Fly, old king, just king.
Okay, actually, now, in theory, I love this song. In theory. I think the lyrics are actually very, very nice, and they are different enough from If I Only Had the Knife to really allow you to get a further understanding of, why the Cowardly Lion just can't muster up any courage. You sort of begin to understand that, but okay, my only problem, but this is a big one. Bert Lahr has a very operatic singing voice, and he really shows it on this track, where he has "If I were the king of the forest," it's like, dude, chill out on the vibrato. Oh my God. And then hell, he has this weird random moment where it's like, ha 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 ha. It's like, what, dude, what are you doing? What are you doing? But because the thing is, he's a fantastic singer. He's a great singer. But that damn vibrato is what, it bugs me because he overdoes it.
I am going to stand alone. I love this song. I recognize that it's bizarre and it's weird and the opera style does kind of overpower whenever it comes out. But I love this song because it just really shows the Cowardly Lion's character. It shows what he aspires to be, and then ultimately it ends in a joke because he cannot be that. When they ask, when he's going through the list of everything, what makes the muskrat guard its musk? And then he ends up with saying, what do they got that I ain't got? And they all say, courage.
Courage.
You can say that again. I'm just a sucker for the Cowardly Lion, I gotta say. I mean, so this song is up there for me. If I were King of the Forest, I gave this song 9 Totos. 9 Totos.
9 Totos out of 10. Chris?
Okay, so funny enough, despite all my criticism, I give it an 8. Because of what it says about his character, and like I said, I can't take anything away from that. It's that the whole vibrato thing, that's on me. That's just on me as a music listener, because otherwise this song is still fantastic. Again, minus my nitpicks, but that's why they're called nitpicks, not criticisms.
Oh, let me put things into perspective. If I only had Noiv, I gave a 7 out of 10. And I like that better than this. So,
oh boy,
this is getting into 6 territory. This is a 6.5 out of 10 from me. I feel like this song, along with the vibrato, along with the theatrics of it, just completely halts this movie. It just halts this movie, and it just makes you want to get to the wizard as soon as possible. Speaking of getting to the wizard, we get to the wizard. Gosh, these effects are really good for 1939 for the wizard. That looked epic. That looked epic. The optical projection was at its finest there, and that's just beautiful. It just looks beautiful. It doesn't look like a 1939 film. It looks like a 1970s film that shot does.
Holds up.
It does. It holds up really well. But he gives them an ultimatum. He says, okay, I'm going to give you your heart. I'm going to give you your brain. I'm going to give you your courage. If you kill the Wicked Witch of the West. The witch essentially gets whiff that the foursome are approaching her castle, and she orders bugs to attack the gang. This whole sequence was actually alluded to in the final cut of the film. When she orders her flying monkeys out the window, she says,
"They'll give you no trouble, I promise you that. I've sent a little insect on ahead to take the fight out of them."
It's an oversight. They forgot to cut that line. But what she's referring to is this sequence in particular. They cut this sequence. The sequence is lost and only survives through home video footage from a crew member of the time. And this sequence basically was... This song is a piece of crap, in my opinion. I don't like it. This is called the Jitterbug.
Should you catch him buzzing around you, keep away from the jitterbug.
And by God, I'm so glad.
Jitterbug.
Yeah.
Wake me up before you go.
Yeah. It's a tip. It actually sounds like a typical Judy Garland song. It feels like a song Judy Garland would sing. It's kind of like that vaudeville kind of 1930s Broadway. It feels very Broadway, which
makes sense given her upbringing.
It makes sense. I don't necessarily feel like at this point in the movie we needed it, and this was a good cut. Tim, I know you love this one. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I love it. I still didn't. When we get to my ranking, we'll get there. But I do like the film, I do like this track, and that's mainly because I enjoy Judy Garland, and I feel like there really isn't a lot of Judy Garland songs in this movie. So I think my liking of this movie, my enjoyment of this song, is because of the fact that it's a heavy Judy Garland song, and I appreciate that. After I watched Wizard of Oz and discovered Wizard of Oz, I really got into kind of Judy Garland, and I actually had a Judy Garland CD. I loved her version of Putting on the Ritz, fantastic. So it's for that reason I do hold this song higher than probably most people would.
Yeah, Chris, I'm interested to know your thoughts. What are your thoughts on the Jitterbug?
Sorry. When is she putting on the Ritz? That sounds awesome. But anyway. So okay, this song again with the opposite of if I were King of the Forest. In theory, I should hate this. Secretly, I respect it. I respect it because okay, for a sequence that, and again, I'm probably nicer just because it was cut. The studios made the right call, thank God, and and even on the Broadway show, it's actually a fun number to kind of just see performed and danced to. In fact, actually, now that I think about it, I did this number in high school. As part of an audition to get in my show choir. That was a fun time. But no, this was it's a song that I really want to hate, but I can't bring myself to do it just because of how well it's performed and the fact that it is still decently written. So yeah, I want to be mean, but you know what? I can't do it. I can't do it.
Yeah, I do forgive that it was cut. I do forgive that it was cut, and I'm glad we have it for posterity so we can see it and look back on it. But being as it was cut, it's lenient, but I would never listen to this again. I actually really disliked it. I told Chris this when I listened to it that this is just bad, and 2 Totos out of 10 it's getting from me. I would never listen to it again. I don't like it.
I know what my next Schmodown entrance song is.
Oh goodness, and he's gonna. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Chris, what do you give this?
I give it an 8 out of 10.
Oh, okay.
8 out of 10 Totos.
I gave it 6 out of 10 Totos.
Oh, okay. So he's gonna come out on the Schmodown next time with a song he gave 6 out of 10.
Yep.
Tim is a true hero to society and America itself.
Oh, the bats and the bees and the birds in the trees. Yeah, so I'll do that.
Jitterbug. After dancing off the bugs, they arrive at the witch's castle and they see her henchmen, which are called the Winkies, which is actually, this is technically the final song in the film. You see the Winkies march, and they have this little march chant, "Oh, wee, ho, the old one." It's called the March of the Winkies. My dad used to sing this all the time to me. He loved this song. It's very nostalgic for me. And yeah, this song, there's not a lot to say. It's the marching as they're going into the gate. Yeah. Chris, can you fluff this out a little bit longer?
You'd be surprised how much I can actually. It's kind of funny because as I was watching this movie, the whole time when I'm hearing bum 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 ba da bum ba da ba 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 da bum ba da. Come on! If I were to ask John Williams right now, like, did you take inspiration from March of the Winkies for the Imperial March?
110%. Yep.
Yep. But hey, honestly, like, this is the right song to pick from for Darth Vader's theme because you're going with one of the other greatest villains of all time's theme. Just saying.
Yeah, it's a fine song. I have memories of it with my dad as well, like repeating it and changing the lyrics. I don't even remember what he would throw in there, but anything to like just fit the situation. And I hum it a lot and I'll say it a lot, but it's just, to me, it's just there. There's not enough there for me.
Mm-hmm. The nostalgia factor there is high for me, more than the actual lyrics in the song itself. So 8.5 Totos out of 10 for me. It's memorable, it's catchy, and it's had an impact. Chris, what do you give it?
I give it a 9 out of 10. Mostly due to its legacy.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. And Tim?
Sorry, guys. 5 Totos out of 10.
Ooh. This is now everything else we're going to talk about has been cut from the film and is only on the soundtrack. And these last 2 songs are killer in my opinion. as you all, if you've seen the movie, you know that they actually get into the castle, and Dorothy gets captured by the witch, and she's locked up in the witch's room, where she sees Auntie M on a crystal ball, and she longs to go home. What people don't know, a lot of people don't realize, is that there was a song in this sequence where it's a reprise of Over the Rainbow, where, as at the beginning, she longed to go someplace else to get out of where she was. This song is longing to go home.
Somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly.
This is literally her singing to herself that her home is over the rainbow. Like, this place was over the rainbow back at home, and it's a good bookend.
You can literally hear it in Judy Garland. She can, like, I don't know what they did to make her cry that hard while she was trying to sing this, but oh my gosh, it's just...
It's brutal, yeah, but I feel like it was necessary in that moment. And this cut, I still don't understand.
Oh, yeah, because, you know, at the same time, you know, her character's not on the verge of dying because of a freaking hourglass. I don't know how that magic worked, but, you know, she was kind of about to die, so time was of the essence. So that's probably why they had to cut the sequence. But
so when they got her, it's not like they did anything. So I was trying to figure that out when I just watched it recently. I'm like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Is that just until the witch comes back and then kills her? I don't know.
I don't know. I love reprises, though. I love reprises when they work really well. It's like this Somewhere That Screen reprise in Little Shop. Like, it just has that power to it, and it's just studio meddling.
Yeah, it's a good song. Like you said, the emotion there. It's crazy to see what she put into it to make you feel what she's feeling. But I think it would be a little out of place because they've already touched on some dark things in this film, and being that it is a kid's film, I think the right decision was to cut it, because throwing that much emotion was just, I don't know, a little much for kids, I think.
You know, for kids.
I actually love this just as much as the original. It's just a little bit, I mean, the original is fantastic and on its own merits. This is just a little bit less than it. 8.5 Totos out of 10 from me. I gave the original 9. This one is a keeper. Chris, what do you give this?
10 out of 10.
Beautiful.
Because, like I said, there is somewhere you could have put it in. Somewhere over the rainbow you could have put it in. Ha ha ha. And I just don't know where it is, but it's there.
Tim, what do you give this?
Don't hate on me too much. I gave it 6 Totos out of 10.
Fair enough.
Yeah. It's not for everybody, but for the people who want, I just wish we at least had the footage. It doesn't survive anymore. Only the audio does. All right. Then we are going to go into the final song. There's no finale song in this film in the actual edit. We get one on the soundtrack, and essentially everybody knows the death of the Wicked Witch of the West. Dorothy sprays water on her, puts water on her, and she melts. I'm melting, what a world, what a world. One of the single greatest death scenes in all of cinema, probably arguably the greatest death scene in cinema. Like one of the most notable.
One of the most satisfying for young people.
Yeah. Definitely one of the single most famous. And the witch is dead. And we actually get a reprise of Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead from the people in Emerald City, called Hail, Hail, the Witch is Dead, also known as Ding Dong, Emerald City. This song is a reprise of Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead, as Dorothy and the crew are headed back to the Emerald City to give the broom to the wizard. And this is very uplifting, and I feel like I wish we could have seen this sequence in its entirety, but I get it. From an editing standpoint, you have to get from point A to point B as fast as you can, and a fanfare at the end could theoretically slow down the pace, but since there's not a lot of songs in the actual theatrical cut to do that, it would have worked in my opinion, and it would have been satisfying. There might be different opinions on this panel. I'm going to throw it over to Tim. What are your thoughts on Hail Hail, the Witch is Dead?
I like Hail Hail, the Witch is Dead. I do prefer the original with Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead. But I think it definitely deserved a spot in the film. Out of the deleted tracks, I think for me, this is the one I think fit most in the movie at the end there, because we had already seen something similar to it, and it would have been a good bookend to the story in terms of song. But at least we still have it to listen to. And do some of the Winkies sing on it too, or is it just
at the beginning?
Yes, at the very start of it's the Winkies, and then it just transitions over to the Emerald City.
Yeah. I'm thinking that when it probably started when they saw the witch being melted, and it started in that room, and then it
killed her.
Yeah, and then it transitions, and it's a transition song. That's what I got from it. I just pictured the Winky singing that over her dead, like melted corpse or whatever that was.
Carrying Dorothy away on her shoulders.
Yeah,
it's just a. It's a very good arrangement. I like the transition that they do of just the one singer into the big epic chorus. Problem, nitpick, chorus is a little hard to hear nowadays. So yeah. But outside of that, I mean, like this would have been a fun way to close out the songs in the film, but I'll be honest, just like with the Over the Rainbow reprise and the Jitterbug, I'm okay with the fact that they got cut, just because I don't know where they would have fit in terms of time. So we'll just
it's all what if because we never saw that edit.
It's all what if, and I'm glad we still have the tracks to go back and listen to. So
I'm glad they didn't delete those. That would have been sad, and this would have just been another myth. For me, I feel like it shouldn't have been cut. It's a solid song. It's solid. Not the best song, but it's a solid closer, and it's a solid song, and that's fair enough for me. Gave it 8 Totos out of 10. This is solid. It didn't need to be cut, in my opinion. Chris, what do you give this out of 10?
I give it an 8 out of 10.
Beautiful. Tim?
I give it 6 Totos out of 10.
All right. It is what it is. It's fair. It's fair. It's fair. All right. Then we're
It's what's fair.
It's what's fair. All right, guys. We are going into the last part of the show. This is where we rank each song from the film from worst to best.
From worst to best, I start with the Jitterbug, Hail Hail, the Witch is Dead, Optimistic Voices. Then my next one is King of the Forest. Next for me is the Munchkin Land sequence. Then up next for me is the Imperial March. Sorry, I mean the March of the Winkies. Follow the Yellow Brick Road / We're Off to See the Wizard. Followed by all 3 reprises of We're Off to See the Wizard. Followed then by If I Only Had a Heart, then If I Only Had the Noive, then If I Only Had a Brain, followed by In the Merry Old Land of Oz, which is then followed by the reprise of Over the Rainbow. Big freaking shock. It blew its load early, but it gave us one of the greatest songs in cinematic history. Somewhere Over the Rainbow is at the top of my list.
All right. Starting from worst to best, we got Optimistic Voices, followed by March of the Winkies, followed by Over the Rainbow reprise. Then we have Hail Hail, the Witch is Dead, the Jitterbug, We're Off to See the Wizard, the reprises, followed by Follow the Yellow Brick Road, We're Off to See the Wizard. Then we move into number 7, which is The Merry Old Land of Oz. We have If I Only Had a Heart, followed by If I Only Had the Knave, If I Were King of the Forest at number 4. Number 3, Over the Rainbow. Number 2, that silly old Munchkin Land sequence And number one for me is the good old Scarecrow, If I Only Had a Brain.
Awesome. The love of this movie is intimate with everybody. For me, my worst is obviously, as I alluded to, Jitterbug. Then Optimistic Voices. Then If I Were King of the Forest. Then we're off to see The Wizard, the reprises. Then Follow the Yellow Brick Road. If I Only Had a Nerve. If I Only Had a Heart. If I Only Had a Brain. Hail, Hail, the Witch is Dead. Then Merry Old Land of Oz. Then Over the Rainbow, the reprise. Then Munchkin Land. And then March of the Winkies, because of the nostalgia factor with my dad. And then, last but not least, is Over the Rainbow indeed.
Tim, I am so sorry.
No,
it's my fault. It's my fault. I had
I'm just trying to figure this out because it's just the math. It's the math, and the math doesn't lie. I don't want it to lie.
If you look at it from a mathematical analytics standpoint, then yes, this is the one-time listen. But if you really look at it using your wizard-given heart and brain, you'll realize it's more than a one-time listen.
I have an idea.
So you know what? No. Do your normal thing and have Tim say exactly that. You think I'm joking, motherfucker? I'm not. Like that was a beautiful way of putting it.
That's a beautiful way of putting it. No, the reason why I'm redoing this math is just because it doesn't feel like that's how we feel about the soundtrack. You know what I mean?
It's not.
No,
but
it's not the way we feel. It's just when you assign a number. When you assign numbers to.
Yeah, that's right.
You're going by the.
It is where it's good to double check.
Numbers.
It's good to double check. Okay. All right. Here we go. All right, guys. I did some number crunching. And this is gonna get really, really controversial. All right. So out of 140 points total, because there are 14 tracks in this film, and out of 10, you times it by 10. Tim gave this 103 out of 140 possible points. Tim gives this soundtrack a 71%. Chris, out of a possible 140 points, gives this soundtrack 125 points, which gives it a total of 89%. I myself, surprisingly, have almost the same score as Tim with 103.5 points out of a possible 140, making my total 71.5%. You times 140 by 3, and you add our scores together, that's 331.5 out of a possible 420 points, equating to 79%. That's 7.9 totos out of 10. Oh my God. This is heartbreaking.
Clark, you fucked up.
I have to figure out a new system because this okay, look. We're not going to do the explosion this and all that and say that this is a one-time listen, because honestly it did come out to a one-time listen, but by God, you should watch this movie. You should download the soundtrack. You should enjoy this and you should share it to your kids. But the numbers do not lie.
Because it's rocking.
When you assign numbers and when you go mathematics and analytical, things, this is what we end up with when you assign numbers. And I myself am guilty, assigning numbers to songs that I don't care for as much. But if you really look at this soundtrack with, your wizard-given heart and mind and brain, you'll see that this is actually a really rocking soundtrack, and the fantastic songs on it uplift it to where it should be. If I only had a brain and the songs I gave 10s to, I'd probably give them 15s if I could, or 20s.
And look, This show is about judging a movie solely based on the soundtrack that it provides. Sometimes the math doesn't equate to how much we actually love a film and love a soundtrack. It's just an extra thing, just in case you're curious to see, oh, we gave things these certain scores. Let's see how much it all comes out to. It's all interest. And essentially, it is a flawed system. There isn't really a way to go about it without it being at least a bit flawed. This is the biggest case of it. And you know, it came out to one time listen, but you know what? Listen to it one time. Over and over and over again, once a day. That's
on repeat.
On repeat.
On repeat.
Yep, indeed. Oh god, this was not the ending of Suddenly Soundtracks episode any of us expected. But you know what? When we have Tim back to do Rocky Horror Picture Show, that's going to be a huge experience and a fun one because
better believe that'll be rocking.
On both accounts, yes. But until then, guys, thank you so much for watching Suddenly Soundtracks. If your computer screen is not broken, thank you so much for tuning in. Chris, where can the good people find you online?
You guys can follow me on Twitter at my band Last Shot at Redemption at LSAR Band MN. You guys can follow Take 3 Productions on Twitter and Instagram at Take 3 Trivia. You guys can follow our sister channel, the Worldwide Movie Games Network, on YouTube and on Twitter at WWMGN Take 3. And of course, you can find me on Stardust and Letterboxd at Chris Take 3. And you can also find me right here on Take 3 Productions, hosting Knights of the Podcast, our bi-weekly Star Wars show. And I don't know, there's like 20 more plugs. Fuck it.
Yeah, this ending was not what we anticipated. Tim, how was your first romp with Suddenly Soundtracks, and where can the good people find you online, my bro?
This was a lot of fun, and I'm ready to take some hate, but don't be too hard on us. I mean, we expressed our true feelings for the film, and you know, it's a number, it's math. You can't go around it really, but that doesn't really speak for what the film really is. So thanks for having me, guys. I look forward to the next one. And you can find me on Twitter at tfranco84, Tim the Tank Franco, and I'm on Instagram as well, AZBatman_84, I believe is what it is. So check me out on there. And yeah, I'll see everyone on the interwebs.
Yep, indeed. And you can find me hiding under a rock because of what just transpired here in the last act of Suddenly Soundtracks. But if you can't find me there, you can also find me on Twitter and Instagram at ChrisClark8788. Those numbers mean nothing. Every Wednesday here hosting Suddenly Soundtracks, as you are aware, or hosting family game nights every weekend whenever we decide it's a complete disaster. But until then, guys, take care and keep rocking.